I guess the first thing to talk about would be what you're most noted for, which would be Star Trek. Now, can you tell me, when was Star Trek first born?
Well, it was conceived in the early 1960s, and we did our first pilot in 1964 for NBC, and that was one that did not, the first pilot did not sell, but the NBC thought it was too cerebral, was the term they used. Then we went on to do a second one the following year, and it did sell, and the series went on the air.
It's easy for an author nowadays to borrow ideas from current events and even history, to simply write stories revolving around a car or a plane. But you had to look into the future and invent your own tools of tomorrow. Where did you get your ideas? On what were they based?
I imagine they were based... I've read science fiction since I was a child, and I suppose most of the ideas were a combination of things I had read and heard about, although I have a smattering of ignorance in scientific fields, and so I had been an airline pilot, and I suppose all of that helped.
How about some specifics on the show Star Trek, like the transporter? Where did you get the idea for that?
Well, the transporter really came out of a production need. I realized with this huge spaceship we had come up with, which is approximately the size of a aircraft carrier, that number one, I would blow the whole budget of the show just in landing the thing on a planet, and secondly, it would take a long time to get into our stories. And so the transporter idea was conceived so that we could get our people and our down to the planet fast and easy, and then our story going by page 2.
How about the concept of heat shields?
They're pretty well known in science fiction, various types of deflector shields and that sort of thing, and so they were really borrowed from concepts of half a hundred authors that have been writing science fiction since the 20s.
You had to create another civilization, like the Klingons. Where'd you get the idea for that?
That actually came from one of the writers who did an episode and had them in it, and they seemed to work as good heavies, and so we kept them on. When people say I created Star Trek, yes, I created the basic idea, and I guided the writers from then on. But many of the things on the show came from writers who did various episodes. A television show is a cooperative effort. For instance, the famous Spock neck pinch came from Leonard Nimoy and Bill Shatner fooling around on the set one day, and we were playing a joke on a new director. Leonard says, "Look, I'll do this to you, and you fall unconscious." And they did it for a laugh, and someone said, "Hey, wait, that's great." What
about some of the characters on the show? Did you create them with certain actors in mind?
Leonard Nimoy was the one actor I definitely had in mind. We had worked together several years previously on when I was producing a show called The Lieutenant. Leonard had done a guest star thing, and I was struck at the time with his high Slavic cheekbones and very interesting face, and I thought to myself, if I ever do this science fiction that I want to do, he'd make a great alien, and with those cheekbones, some sort of a pointed ear might go well. And then I forgot entirely about it until I began to lay out the Star Trek characters, and then to cast Mr. Spock, I simply made one phone call to Leonard. He came in, and that was it.
Were you satisfied with the way most of the characters were developed in Star Trek?
What I was trying to do was to get a sort of a family group representing different types of humanity, so that our audience would feel at home on the ship. And it was really an effort to give the 20th century audience some handle in this future world of recognizable people.
You seem to let Spock develop on his own with more and more of a major role as an Enterprise crew member. Did audience reaction encourage you to let Spock come into his own, or was this planned?
Well, the Spock story is an interesting one. He was third or fourth most important in pilot number 1. This was even before women's lib, but I'd always felt that in any future world, women would have positions of responsibility, and so the number 2 in command at that time was a female called number 1 under the captain. Among the things NBC didn't like in the pilot was a woman in a position of command, and so they wanted that out, and they're very strong about that. But in making the pilot, I saw how the Spock character was working, and I wanted to elevate him up and make him the number 2 character. But NBC said, no, we don't want him either, because the audience will never identify with a pointed-eared creature from another planet. Well, I felt that was the one fight I had to win, so I said I wouldn't do the show unless they let me leave at least him in. And they said, well, fine, you can leave him in, but keep him in the background, will you?
Wow.
And then when they put out their sales brochures on the show, they carefully rounded Spock's ears and made him look human so it wouldn't scare off any potential advertisers. After the show had been on the air 6 or 8 weeks, why, of course, the audience reaction to Spock was very strong, and a new NBC vice president came to the West Coast, and he called me in, and he said, what's the matter with you? You've got this great character, and you're keeping him in the background. And we pointed out the sales brochures and told him what NBC had asked us to do, and his only answer was, I think I'm going to throw up. From then on, Spock, of course, was number 2.
Why was Spock a half-breed? Why was he that?
I wanted to have an interesting personality facet. I wanted parts of him to be at war with one another. The human part fighting the alien part. And I thought, and half-breeds, traditionally in drama, have always been highly interesting characters.
How about Captain James T. Kirk? He was a sort of an all-American boy, but on a larger scale. He was handsome, he was intelligent. Was it hard to keep him the basic nice guy in situation after situation?
That is a problem, of course, but at the time we were putting Star Trek on, television was full of anti-heroes. And I had a feeling that the public likes heroes, people with goals in mind, people with honesty, dedication, and so on. And so I decided to go for straight heroic roles on the show, and it paid off. My model for Kirk, for those that are interested, was Horatio Hornblower, the C.S. Forester Sea Stories, which I've always enjoyed.
Did many actors try out for the role of Kirk, or was Shatner the only one?
No, we had a great deal of trouble casting it. Many actors turned us down, and later, of course, wish they hadn't. But science fiction at that time had a very bad name, and many serious actors had just made up their mind they wanted nothing to do with it because the stuff they'd seen on television up at that time was so bad they didn't want their name associated with it.
Here's a loaded question. Now, Kirk was almost always involved in quick, superficial relationships, and not much else romantically. Sometimes that was even more fictitious than the rest of the plot. Was Kirk married to the Enterprise? Is that what happened?
That was what we wanted to develop, yes. Married to his job and to the ship. That was his real love affair.
What about the Enterprise itself? Where did you get that name?
Well, although I had been a Army bomber pilot in World War II, I have always been fascinated by the Navy, and particularly fascinated by the story of the Enterprise in World War II, which at Midway really turned the tide of the whole war in our favor. And I'd always considered it a very heroic ship, and decided to use the name.
In the making of Star Trek, did you find that you made any technical boo-boos that NASA or somebody else discovered and complained about?
Oh, yeah, we made our share, but we tried not to. We had technical advice from NASA at times, from the RAND Corporation. We had a technical advisor, physicist at RAND, who checked all of our scripts. And then we also had another script-checking service. So we did our best to avoid them, but of course every now and then we would slip. And we're quick to point it out.
Offhand, did anything funny or really unexpected happen during the filming of the series?
I should say that a lot of that it was probably the happiest crew that had ever as far as I know, has ever been assembled, the crew and the cast. And we kept it that way. Our schedules were very tight, and we kept it that way with constant practical jokes. And I think the book by Steve Whitfield, The Making of Star Trek, has pages of the things that went on. It's very funny reading.
Gene, it's a well-known story that Star Trek was saved from oblivion by audience reaction in the form of thousands of pieces of mail received by the network when a cancellation of the show was announced. How did that make you personally feel?
Well, it surprised me, and of course it was gratifying. What particularly gratified me in it, though, was not so much the fact that a large number of people did that, but I got to meet and know Star Trek fans, and they range from children to presidents of universities, and really a very great bunch of people. It's one of my greatest enjoyments from the show was to find the kind of people we attracted and some of the relationships we formed with them.
Speaking of meeting and knowing the Star Trek fans, the Trekkies as they're now called, the impact of the show is so great that these Trekkies hold annual conventions. They got another one coming up February 15th. And I think probably you spoke at one of those Star Trek conventions.
Yes, I did go to one of them, and it was a remarkable experience. I am not sure that I have the strength to do it very often. My temperament is that of the writer. I like to be alone in the quiet room and work there, and the sight of 8,000 people sitting out there really makes my knees shake.
When you sat alone in your quiet room and you started on the Star Trek series, did you ever think it would go that far, to have a convention of Trekkies?
No. I hoped the series would be successful, but I was really astounded when it became a cult. The gratifying part of that is I made a real effort in Star Trek to write into it some of my own beliefs and philosophies on nonviolence, on the fact that to be different is not necessary. If someone else is different, it doesn't mean they're necessarily bad or wrong, and philosophies like that, and thoughts like that, and it was very gratifying that the Star Trek fans liked that part of the show best of all, the fact the show said something.
I guess you know that part of the reason for the Trekkies is not only to pay tribute to Star Trek, but try to resurrect it. Now comes the bonus question. Why can't we have a new series with the same cast of Star Trek? Well,
I wondered that myself. There have been several efforts. NBC started talking about it once, and then they asked for a new pilot. And that's an enormous amount of work and risk, and our attitude was we made 78 shows. We didn't see why we had to try out for them all over again. I think our best chance of getting it back on the air would be probably through the motion picture route. There's some talk at Paramount of doing a Star Trek feature, a major feature. And I think that if we did a feature, or if we were fortunate, went like Planet of the Apes did a series of features, I think that probably would lead to it getting back on the air.
Is the cast willing to do that? Have you spoken to
them? On
a
feature basis, that wouldn't be too much of a problem, because they could do a feature and still take care of their other commitments. If we were just going to go straight on the air, we would have to probably plan it a year or a year and a half ahead, so that current commitments by all the actors could be gotten rid of.
Mm-hmm. The cartoon version of Star Trek, is that a compromise, a pacifier?
No, it wasn't meant as that. The NBC wanted something, a strong show in their morning cartoon time slots, and they were willing to go along with my demand that it not be written down to the kiddie level. That I believe that children are much more intelligent than they're given credit for. So we use regular Star Trek writers and the standard Star Trek type story. And it wasn't pacifier. It was just an effort to do something a little better on Saturday morning.
Mm-hmm. We here at Warm Radio are starting a thing called Keep on Trekking, if you'll pardon that.
Yes, I've heard.
And all we want to do is try and revive it, or possibly something. What good would petitions do, or letters do, in sending to networks? Would it convince them, do you think?
I think they do keep interest alive, certainly. I think letters, Paramount's been getting a lot of, Paramount, who owns the basic copyright, along with me, has been getting a lot of letters about a motion picture. And I think that's been helpful.
The series seems to be more popular in the rerun circuit. More people have discovered Star Trek after it has been off and rerun many times. Do you ever watch the old shows?
I started watching them about 6 months ago, and I was really amazed. You know, when you make a show, you see each episode 6 or 8 times by the time you cut it and put music and all of that on it. And by the time they get on the air, you're pretty tired of them. But after all these years, I went back and began looking at them on a local channel and kind of enjoyed them.
Looking back, would you do anything differently?
Nothing basic different. There are errors we made. There are sets, I think, looking back, we could improve. But as far as any basic differences, no.
Okay.
I think we could. I think we'd keep the same configurations of the Enterprise and the bridge, although technology has advanced a lot since '64, and our instrumentation and everything could look a lot better. And there are new plastics we can use. We would get a better looking sets if we did it again.
Mm-hmm. Okay, enough of Star Trek. Give you a break here. Let's talk about Gene Roddenberry. Now, what background do you have to go into science fiction writing?
I think basically it's the background that most writers have. Always have been an omnivorous reader, and when you read all your life constantly, you store away a lot of miscellaneous information that's very helpful. As I said, I liked science fiction. I had been, when I began writing, I was an airline pilot with Pan Am, and I think that helped me a bit in engineering and so on. It's hard to analyze something like that.
When you write, Gene, you write mostly about the future. Do you have a philosophy? Do you try to incorporate a moral, a message in everything you do?
Yes, I think that I think that any professional writer should have a theme, and make a statement in whatever he's doing, whether it's a Mr. District Attorney script or a great novel. To me, the whole purpose of writing is to make statements.
Well, do you have one philosophy for everything, let's say, futuristic that you write?
I should say, if I have any overall philosophy, it's a reverence for living things of all types, and a great optimism about mankind. I think for all the foolish things we do, we're a pretty remarkable creature, and we have and I think we're still in our childhood compared to where we will be going.
Do you think mankind needs saving of some sort?
Oh, I think my own philosophy is that mankind has within himself what he needs. I rather think that whatever God is, we are all a part of it.
How about the UFO flurry, Gene? As a man who has created a UFO or two in his time on paper, do you believe in them to be flying saucers? Do you believe UFOs to be visitors from another world?
I think it's not impossible. I disbelieve most reports, but I think it is not at all impossible that we have been visited or are being visited, and sometimes I hope so. We tend to make such a mess of it ourselves, we could use some outside help.
You, as a producer, director, author, do you have a favorite movie from that viewpoint?
A favorite Star Trek?
No, a favorite movie, just in general.
Never been asked that question. I really don't. I love movies, and I have many favorites. I'm sorry, it's a disappointing answer, but I really don't.
How about a favorite science fiction writer? Anybody that you like to read more often than others?
Well, one of them would certainly be Isaac Asimov, and I think Arthur C. Clarke, and Heinlein would be my three favorites.
Just a few more questions here. All your stuff is really believable. We are able to relate. Is that the secret to a good science fiction? Do you think that we are able to relate and identify, or is there a line?
That's really the whole secret, and that's why science fiction has so often been done badly. In writing and producing science fiction, you must give the same attention to believability that you do in doing a contemporary show. You must motivate your people. You must use every effort to make the audience believe they are there and that it's really happening. So often in the past, in science fiction, they used bad directors. When someone said, "Well, why does he do this?" they would shrug and they'd say, "Well, it's because it's science fiction." That's not good enough. You should write science fiction with the same care that you use in writing anything else. I think the reason The Exorcist motion picture right now is such a hit is instead of doing it like many horror films have been done without motivation, they gave great effort to make it believable, and it shocks you right out of your chair because of it.
Let's talk about something you've done recently. A few things. First of all, Genesis 2, about a man in our present who awakens in the post-nuclear war future, trying to help out a pilot for possibly a new series. This seemed to be more commercial than any of the other Roddenberry creations. Why was that?
Well, I wanted to do another show which had one thing that Star Trek had, and that was a chance to visit different worlds every week. At the same time, I didn't want to do planet hopping again, and so it occurred to me that if our Earth went into a new dark ages before another civilization is built, society tends to fragment and really does get like 100 different worlds all over the Earth. And I decided that although we did go 2 centuries ahead, I'd prefer to have the hero a 20th century man, and that's when we came up with the idea of suspended animation to get him there. And perhaps that gave it a commercial look. The status of the show is that we made the pilot for CBS. They decided not to go into a series. ABC became interested in the general idea, and I revised and changed many things in the concept, and I'm now in the middle of writing a new pilot motion picture for ABC, which the show will be recast with new concepts, and I think this time we may get it into a series.
Do you care to talk about that? The name of it, the plot, anything?
Well, it'll be on the air sometime this spring, but we don't have an air date. As a matter of fact, we begin shooting it in about 10 days. And I'm at home today working on the script, as a matter of fact, doing a polish on it.
No hints as to what it is.
I don't even know what the name of the series will be. The work name we're using right now is Planet Earth. Whether that will be the final name of the series or not, I don't know.
One more thing. Let's talk about something that was on national TV last night, the Quester tapes, which I thought was excellent. I think it's one of the best Roddenberry things besides Star Trek that I have seen.
Thank you.
It was thoroughly believable about a computerized human-like robot. And what I like best about it is that you did not moralize. There was probably a horrible temptation at the end to moralize and to flash a red light and say, this is what it is and this is what it should be and you people are doing this wrong. But you let us do that for ourselves. Do you think the day will come when machines will really overtake and control man, not like it did there, but like it could have happened?
I think it's certainly conceivable. The basic question in Quester was, what is life? If you can create a thing out of a mechanical thing that thinks, is that necessarily any less alive than a thinking creation that's made out of organic matter? And I think it is certainly conceivable that computers could become more intelligent than we are.
One more thing. What about the future of Gene Roddenberry and your writings? Where are you going to go from here?
It's hard to say. The way I think about that is I think optimistically. I wake up every morning expecting something good to happen, and I've been fortunate. Good things do happen. I intend to get some more television going. Hopefully, the Planet Earth. Hopefully, Quester. I'd like to do some features. I don't want to confine myself exclusively to science fiction, but I do like imaginative things. I really have no plans other than enjoy myself, write as well as I can, and be honest with the audience.